Okay, we've got the governor valve now. Okay, I've washed the governor valve. And we've made sure that's nice and flat as well. We're just going to put the valve in backwards and just see how it travels. And there's a little bit of resistance there, so I'd say there's a little burr there. What happens, this little edge here makes a little burr on the inside there, so it's important just for the valve to knock that burr off. And there we go. Let's see, it's going much easier now. Now that valve doesn't come out very far. You can see where that plate comes up to, so it only comes up to about there. So, but it's very important that it's got nice sharp edges there. If you end up knocking that off, you know, I've heard of people getting a bit of sandpaper or wet and dry and cleaning it up if it's sticky. That's the incorrect way of doing it. You get some very, very fine grinding compound, and you just put a little bit on the valve together with some solvent, and you just work it through. But it's even best to not use any grinding compound, just work it through on it under its own step there. And that, you can see it's precision fit, don't force it in. That valve's really good. Now we're just going to do the other one. That's the secondary valve. Same thing. Backwards. On this one, you can actually see where it's working, where it's worn there. The valve doesn't even travel all the way to there. So this edge here, where my fingernail is critical. And that sharp edge there. So it's got a nice sharp edge, so it'll have a cleaning effect as it's working through the bore. Very good. Put it back together now. A little bit tricky to get that spring through. Okay, now we can put the governor back on. Now I've put a little filter in there as well, don't forget that, if it had one. And we put the governor back on. And we can put the Speedo Gear on as well. This one's got 9, I think it's 9 starts. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. They also come with a yellow one with 8 starts. Now, with these gears, you just check it, because this is the drive gear, the drive one that drives the gear on the Speedo cable. You want to make sure that that's nice and flat. When they wear out, they'll have a little dip in them like that. There's a little hole there, and I just like to bend this clip out a little bit just so there's more tension on it. There you go. Yeah, we've also got this a test plate we made up years ago, or Dad made up. We can put this on and just test. You can see it's got different locations: your second clutch, third clutch, rear clutch, governor valve and servo. So we can bolt that on there, which we'll do. Now we've got it all belt bolted down, including the servo cover. You can hear the second clutch, third clutch, reverse clutch, servo, or the band. And we've got the valve, the governor valve. Can't really see it, but you can see it moving up. There, bit hard to see. I haven't got good lighting here. You'll see the back there. We can see the band applying. So it's all good. We know it's all sealed up pretty well. And again, I've got the êADG manual here on the Trimatic, and it just shows which clutches and band and sprag when it's overrun or locked up in all the different gears. Here we've got a diagram of the pump. Here's a diagram of the modulator valve and the detent valve and sleeve. And we've got the servo piston. And here's a diagram of the valves in the valve body. Can't really get it too much closer to enlarge the numbers and what it is. And there's a diagram of all the little holes in the separator plate. It's really hard to make out. Even here the numbers are all blurry on my screen on the computer, if you can make that out. And there, the little worm trails on the case. And there we have the torque specifications for it. Now here we have a diagram. It's like an additional diagram to the êADG book. On this diagram you can see, I don't know if you can see it in the green, that's the location for your third clutch apply, and the little red square there is the second clutch apply. Now there's a little modification you can do on our separator plate. We've actually got the 564-inch holes, which are 2mm. We're going to actually drill those out to 332, so about 2.4 to 2.5 mil. That'll increase the harshness, or it'll just make the gears change a little bit harder. So our customer doesn't want it to go too crazy. He wants to be able to still drive it like an automatic and on the road. So we're going to go for the 332. But as you can see, it gives you a warning by increasing those hole diameters by too much. Things can start to break, and depending on what you've done to your transmission, can completely affect the shift quality. I wouldn't recommend going past the stage 2, but I have heard of people drilling them right out to the maximum size, which is the size of the bore, which I think is 5/16 actually, or 1/4 inch. So or 1/4 inch is 6 mil. So yeah, I'd be very interested in seeing if those transmissions last under those sort of applications of the clutch packs. But anyway, just for your own interest, there's a little mod for you. It'll make it shift a little bit harder through the gears without modifying anything. You don't have to do any of the other work that we've done to beef it up, but you do need to remove the valve body and the separator plate to do this job. And if you increase it too much, you'll see that that's what will happen. You'll get a crack in the servo piston, and it'll just blast it right out. So that's why we've put a steel servo piston in. But of course, that's a weak point. When you improve a weak point, it just shifts a weak point to another location. So keeping that in mind, you've got to be careful in what you do and what you modify. Here we've got our separator plate. What somebody's actually done, they've pop riveted one of the holes here and got rid of the little check ball in there. If you look back on that diagram, you'll find that what they've actually plugged off there is the reverse, and this one's low. So the holes that we're going to actually drill is this one here. Under this separator plate there's a little check ball, so this one here will be drilled out to the next size, and that one there. On some separator plates there'll be another hole there as well. So but anyway, that's what we're going to do. That's the factory size. And also you can see when you're drilling that port out, you can see where it sits on the case there, or the valve body where it sits. So you want to just try and just drill the hole that side, so you're not actually drilling into the where it's sitting on that little wall there. Same as this one here, we're just going to drill it in that direction just so it's more in the middle of that port there, because you can see where the valve body wall sits. We're basically just going to drill it out from 78 thou to 94 thou. I'm just going to do that in the drill press, in the bench drill. There we go, you can hardly see the difference, but drilled out the second. We're just going to hit the stone on that, take that burr off, and then just drill it again just to clean it, just in case we've pushed that burr back in there. Or we can just get another just by hand, and I think I'll actually do that, just get a slightly bigger drill and just put a slight chamfer on there so there's no burr or nothing can fall in. Terrible lighting here. Whenever I put my hand in front of the light, you can't see anything on the camera. There you go, that's nice and level. I'm going to replace this gasket as well. And you can see where that check ball's been hammering, it's nearly gone all the way through there. So we're just going to level that up as well, and just make sure that that check ball seals properly on there. If that doesn't help, then we're going to have to get another separator plate. Okay, we've got the valve body here now. I've still got the gasket on it. Whenever you're changing these gaskets, always make sure that you test the gasket on the separator plate. And make sure all the holes are open everywhere they need to be on the separator plate. Okay, so we're just going to give this a clean up before we disassemble it, clean it and blow it all out. And it's just a matter of slowly, one by one, going through all the valves, taking them out, washing it up, and making sure that it's floating properly through the bore. These valve bodies are very good in that they're like a cast valve body. You don't often, very rare, that you'll have a valve that's seized up or locked up in there. They can seize up when you get all that muck, because that's actually the top side of the valve body. and as the muck sort of accumulates in there, it can seize up the valves, but generally speaking it's very rare for them to seize up anyway. They're a nice sharp valve. The edges are nice and sharp. They have a flushing effect. It's a good solid material, so you don't get the warpage like you do in the alloy valve bodies. And anyway, that's what we're going to do. I won't, the video's getting on a bit, getting quite long, but I'm just going to clean it all up, like I said, and blow it out, clean it up as clean as I can get it without disassembling anything, and then I'll take the valves out one by one and clean it up. Okay, we've gone through the valve body, cleaned it all up. We've left the accumulator in there. Sometimes people like to lock them up with a washer in there. We haven't done that, so we've left that the same. And we've gone through the separator plate. And we've just made sure it's nice and flat. We've just ran a stone over that and tested it with a check ball. It does seal okay. And we've made sure that pop rivet's sealed properly. So now we're just going to get a gasket, get the gaskets, just confirm that all the holes are okay or match. You end up putting the gasket on one side, and then by watching through the other side you want to see a clear view through all the holes. We'll do that on both the upper and the lower valve body gasket. It's good practice to do that on any automatic transmission. Sometimes when they punch them out, the hole isn't punched out properly, or it's a slightly varied separator plate, and you might find that the slots are slightly different. So it's always good. You can cut it out, but you want to make sure that all those holes are clear. Unless it's into a spot that doesn't do anything like into there, that wouldn't matter there because there's nothing working there. Same as over here, so, and along there. So you just want to make sure that all those holes matched up, and go from there. Okay, we're going to put the check ball over here. Just going to give those valves a little bit of a squirt of oil just so they don't rust up. And we've ended up putting the gasket on the underside there and confirming that all the holes are clear. And I've got my little guide pins that we've made up. That's alright in that one there. And I'm just going to squirt a bit of oil on those valves as well. the short bit goes in there, so I like to put it in the valve. Some people like to put it in there and then guide it into the valve, but anyway, we'll see how we go. We've got the valve body on, got this modified plate. What we do is we have a special drill where we countersink a groove in there, and we put an O-ring in there. It just stops leaking on the kickdown solenoid, eliminates that problem. We've got the servo cover on. Now we're just going to put the filter on, extension housing. Got to replace the bush and seal on the output shaft or extension housing, and job's done. Now we had to replace the solenoid because we tested it wasn't working, so we've done that. We've also got our modified plate, bolted it all down, made sure everything's okay. Just got the filter to put on now, and don't forget to put the gasket. With these gaskets, there is actually a type that has that one side blocked off. So the new gaskets have got two holes, so you can't muck it up like that. But yeah, if you end up putting the wrong side on there, it can block up the filter. Going to pop a neodymium magnet in, and I'm just going to stick it on here just so it's got as much surface area exposed to the oil, which will be better. Stick it on like that, and you can see it's holding on pretty strong, so it's not going to fall off. And that sits about somewhere around where the modulator is there, so it's not going to be in the way of anything. I'm just going to knock out the bush. I've taken the seal out. We've got our little driver there. There we go, the old bush, and we got the new bush. Just going to give this extension housing a bit of a wash, and then we'll drive the new one back in. Okay, I'm going to put the join, you can see where the join is on the bush, up at the top, and that should have the lubricating grooves on the bottom, and at about 2 o'clock and 10 o'clock. So, on this particular bush anyway. And I'm not going to drive it in all the way, I'm going to leave it sticking up above the chamfer there, just to so it's closer to the yoke. There we go. And you can see it's a bit more raised. And I've got the seal, and I've got this old piston as a driver, and it's just got a little step. What that does is that it won't push it all the way down, and hopefully it'll be sitting, or the lips will be sitting at a new spot on the yoke. Usually they wear a little groove there on the yoke, so we just try and put them in a different spot. With these you can't drive them in any deeper, so the next option is to have it out a little bit. You can hear it's got a slightly different sound, and there you can see it's raised just a tiny little bit, and there you go. And I've put the parking pawl back in. You can see it's spring loaded. When this rod here pushes in here, that'll push it into the parking slot. And don't forget the gasket. There we have it. We've done a couple of little mods on there. Increased the capacity of the clutches in the third and the second drum. Increased the pressure in the pump a little bit. What else have we done? Put the pop rivet on the reverse in the separator plate and drilled out the third and the second clutch pack apply, just by going to the next size up. There we have it, and the high stall converter. I hope that's shown you a little bit. Of course, you don't need to do these modifications. You can keep it stock standard. Just make sure everything's clean and just go through. You don't have to do those modifications if you don't need to or want to. Anyway, I hope that's helped you a little bit. Thank you for watching.